The film you are about to see was produced as a troop information film, specially prepared to alert the American soldier against a hidden enemy, an enemy that can destroy morale, rob the soldier of the will to fight, and even trick him into surrendering. Enemy propaganda. Although this study of communist deception was made for a military audience, we think that you, the American public, will also find it pertinent and enlightening.
Schopte se, uvědomte si, kdo jste, co jste, kde žijete, že žijete v Československu. Stydím se. Za generála Pávka Rakušany táhni do prdele.
Let no one be deceived. That's what the man said. I don't think you need 3 guesses to know what this is all about. But let's listen a moment longer and see what's behind it.
Věřím, opravdu věřím, že sem ten Putin přijde.
That was the voice of the Kremlin, or rather, one of its voices. There are lots of them around the world, speaking in every language. This material is just another sample of what you might call the communist war without guns. I'm Colonel Foster. I'm going to be your guide for a short tour through the maze of communist propaganda. It's a strange, shadowy world of the doctored photograph, the misquotation, the insinuation, and the lie. Now, some of this material to us is comical. Some of it is tragic. Some of it's weird. Some of it's dull. But all of it has the single purpose of digging the grave of liberty. The gravediggers of communism have been trying to set America up for the kill for years. And it makes them very angry that we don't just collapse as per schedule. Listen to this. The living conditions of the American masses, that's you, are swiftly deteriorating. Our generation is going through the final convulsions of the dying world of capitalism. That's what it says here. If you're assigned to duty overseas, you may see posters like this once in a while. That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself. Of course, we get a big chuckle out of stuff like this, but the bigger the lie, the bigger the laugh. But the gravediggers aren't laughing. They're deadly serious. And in some places around the still free world, some people believe them. I imagine that all of us gum-chewing, pampered gangster murderers know why we're being slandered. It's because America is the major obstacle that stands between the gravedigger and his intended victim. Here is target number 1 for the Reds. And who's in the bullseye? You are. Being in the bullseye, it's important to know something about the enemy's weapons and how to spoil their aim. That aim is nothing less than world conquest. And subversion by every possible means is the chief method used. The key word is conflict. Outside of the red countries themselves, conflict must be promoted everywhere. Every dissatisfaction must grow into a resentment. Every resentment must become an argument. Every argument must grow into a fight. Every fight must blossom into a riot. Every riot must expand into a war. And every war must end in devastation. For there in the ruins, communism finds its chance. For the communists, there must never be a compromise. Never a settlement of disputes. Only conflict. In America, practically nobody listens. In all countries with stable government, civil liberties, and reasonable prosperity, communism makes little or no headway. The red countries cannot stand comparison in the light of day. Well, every GI in Korea wanted nothing more than to go home and live in peace, if only the communists would do the same thing. But they didn't, of course, until we fought them to a standstill. Now let me introduce you to another communist. This is going to be hard to take.
A my se na to dívat musíme, je to Česko proti bídě, tohle jim nevyjde, budeme se bránit ty a já. Je to Česko proti bídě, změna ať už přijde, přestaň nás už vádo kurva srát.
That's the way Soul City Sue entertained us in Korea. Nice music and a soft, sympathetic voice, selling discouragement and defeat, digging graves as all communists do, but lining them with velvet. They were interchangeable weapons in the communist war of words. Propaganda from the enemy in a combat zone like Korea is one thing. Propaganda in a peaceful country is something else. Most of you who will be stationed overseas will run into the second kind. At first, you may not notice that the grave diggers are as busy as ever, slandering us, trying to separate us from our allies. You'll go about your business for a long time, maybe, and then turn a corner one day and see it splashed across a fence or a wall. Or maybe on an ordinary street or square. Suddenly, you'll come across the party insignia on a doorway, and it'll remind you that the grave diggers are around. Or maybe you'll stop to look at a poster in some European town. You probably can't read the language, but the picture is plain enough. A while ago, I mentioned the importance of knowing the enemy's weapons and how to spoil their aim. Through your behavior and your friendly attitude, you can make a personal contribution toward combating communist accusations of gangsterism and gum-chewing arrogance. Here's another way to play it smart. Avoid any contact with political demonstrations and you'll stay out of trouble. The communists are good at making propaganda in a big, noisy way. And in a quiet, insidious way, too.
It's a very bad mistake to rearm Germany. The Soviets are no fools. They will not allow it, even if it means war.
France? It is a corpse, propped up by American bayonets. No, my friend. France is not a nation. It is a staging area for Americans when they are ready to attack the Soviet Union.
I do not say the Americans are bad, only mistaken. Where is this Soviet threat they talk about? Stalin is dead. The Soviets want only peace. So why don't the Americans go home?
Well, if you hear enough of this kind of gossip planted by the communists, enough phony rumors of America's secret plans to launch a war, enough big lies, little lies, and medium-sized lies, maybe you'll begin to believe some of it. Maybe you'll begin to wonder if there isn't some truth in it. Maybe nobody really likes us. Maybe the world really thinks we're imperialistic warmongers. Maybe. Well, that's what the grave diggers want you to think. Because if you do, you're halfway in the bag. The fact is that every free nation in the world looks to America as the bulwark of liberty. The fact is, behind the Iron Curtain are millions of people to whom the voice of America is the only voice of hope in a world of darkness. The fact is that all along the Austrian border, the Czech border, the East German border, every day, every hour, people are slipping across, swimming across, crashing across to freedom, telling their pitiful stories in the refugee centers, asking only that they be allowed to stay on our side of the Iron Curtain. Their stories are all different, and yet always the same. If you heard 1,000 or 2 of these stories, they'd begin to get monotonous. You'd think, isn't there an end to this? No. There is no end. Not until communism ends. under the weight of its own evils and its own lies. They spend millions, but the funny thing is they don't get a dime's worth of good where people recognize the truth. It's as simple as that. If you know propaganda for what it is, you are protected from its lies. Not only that, you can take measures against it by giving the lie to the enemy at every turn. How? By realizing a simple fact, that in foreign eyes, you and your uniform are the image of America, and by conducting yourself accordingly. You're in the bullseye of the communists' target number one. And yet, our cause and our country can never be defeated unless we ourselves fail to uphold it.
The best defense against enemy propaganda is truth. For a communist, a thing is true only if it advances the communist cause. It is false if it does not. The soldier who understands how enemy propaganda works is forewarned and forearmed. In this knowledge lies his strength.